Hey everybody, welcome back to the Sanctum. As you can see by these cool, colorful boxes laid out before us, it's time for another vintage costume showcase, focusing on costumes from the likes of Ben Cooper and Collegeville. As I stated last year during our vintage showcase, Halloween has always been my favorite holiday, and growing up as a monster kid, how could it not be? I mean, Halloween encapsulates everything there is about being a monster kid. You get to go out there and be the monsters that you love. Act it out, roam the neighborhood, scare your neighbors, scare your friends. It's a glorious time to be a monster kid at Halloween. What is a monster kid, you may ask? Well, the first Monster Kids happened around 1957 when Universal Pictures released its shock theater package to local television stations for syndication. And they would play these movies, and the package contained all the great Universal monster movies. Frankenstein, the Wolfman, Dracula, the Mummy. The only one I don't think it had was The Creature from the Black Lagoon, because The Creature was still quite a current film at that time. But anyhow, kids loved these movies, and they took off like wildfire, and then there was a big boom in monster merchandise, right up through the 60s. Then there was a resurgence again in the 70s of Monster Kids, and I'm of that Monster Kid generation. Of course, we had the stuff that was left over from the 60s, as we always did, and growing up watching syndicated television, you caught all these great old horror movies. And I loved this stuff. I ate it up. I sought it out, and I still do to this day. That's how deep my love is for this. And that's why this episode, I'm going to focus on those real icons of what started the monster craze. Because it was Dracula, it was Frankenstein, it was the Mummy, and it was the Creature from the Black Lagoon and the Wolfman that started the monster craze. And of course, that's built over the years to encapsulate a variety of things. Godzilla and kaiju and slasher films and things along those lines. But we wouldn't have any of that if it wasn't for these guys from Universal Studios. And that is why we're entitling this episode, Mad Monster Party, Icons in a Box. So not only did Halloween allow me to be something fantastic that I wanted to be, but it allowed me to find out who else was cool. Because when you'd see other people out and about dressed up in costumes, you could tell by what they were dressed as how cool they were. I mean, I suppose nowadays that type of excitement happens at conventions with cosplay and things along those lines. But there was nothing as exciting as going out on a crisp Halloween evening and just seeing the people start to fill the streets in their costumes. And then you say, there's a Frankenstein. Oh, cool, there's a Dracula. Oh my God, there's a $6 million man. And you knew that those were fellow travelers like you if they were dressed up like things like that. You could tell who the cool kids were by the costumes they wore. Cool in my opinion. And it was always interesting to see. I was just as excited to see what other people were dressed as to what I was. And I didn't just walk around in that costume. I mean, I lived that role of whatever I was. If I was Planet of the Apes, I was an ape from Ape City roaming around the neighborhood that night. If I was the Wolfman, I was the Wolfman out on the prowl. I just loved it. And that to this day, why Halloween is so cool. I still go trick-or-treating with my daughter. And of course, in college, you would get dressed up in costumes and things like that. And I still love it once you're in that costume and you encapsulate that role. And that's what's so fun about these Ben Cooper costumes, because they're almost like a box of, it's like, when you get a toy, there's the potential of the games I can play with this toy or the adventures I can have with this toy. And when you would buy one of these Ben Cooper costumes, it was the potential to me of what adventures can I have as being this character. I finally get to be the Frankenstein monster. I finally get to be the Wolfman. First up, we have Count Dracula, or as he's labeled here, just plain old Dracula. Now, Dracula is the movie that started off the entire Universal Pictures monster cycle, and it starred the great Bela Lugosi. But looking at this costume here, you might say, well, that doesn't quite look like Bela Lugosi. Why is that, Dr. Durant? Well, I'll tell you, loyal viewers/listeners. As you all well know from prior episodes, Bela Lugosi Jr., Bela Lugosi's son, grew up to be an attorney, and he fought for the rights to his father's likeness. In other words, he said, if you want to use Bela Lugosi's image on any of your Dracula toys, models, comic books, etc., you need to pay a fee to do so. That's a reasonable request. But a great many companies said, Bela Lugosi is not Dracula, Dracula is Dracula, and we can just do our own generic Draculas. Which is why to this day you have a lot of generic Dracula merchandise. They kind of dance around that Bela Lugosi image as best they can without infringing upon it, but the most part you just get a guy with slicked back hair and a pale face sometimes as Dracula. So this one here, it appears that Ben Cooper did not pay for the fee to use Bela Lugosi's image for Dracula. So you've got this generic Dracula costume. But be that as it may, this is still a very cool Dracula costume. And if you remember last year's episode, I showcased this exact smock here, which I had obtained on eBay. I didn't have the mask. But if you also recall, I almost died filming that smock because it smelled as if it had been stored under Burt Young's sofa cushions. It was awful. And so I sought out a new one this year on eBay, and I was able to track this one down. This was an entire costume. It's a child small. It came with the mask and the smock. It did not, however, sadly come with the box. But that's fine. I now have the complete costume. And for some reason, a lot of these Universal Monster Ben Cooper costumes are really tough to come by. Frankenstein's all over the place. I see some Wolfmans pop up. I have a hard time finding the Mummy, the Creature, or Dracula. I don't know why those three seem to be the ones that are very difficult to come by, or at least they don't pop up on the secondary market as much. But anyhow, be that as it may, we're talking about this fantastic 1978 Dracula costume. As you can see by the copyright there, it says 1978 Ben Cooper Incorporated. It's an all vinyl costume. It's got that quality of vinyl pool toys or one of those blow up pools. And we'll address the elephant in the room right now. Yes, it is a Dracula with a picture of Dracula on it. Whenever anybody discusses these Ben Cooper or Collegeville costumes, it always comes up like, hey, look, it's Dracula with a picture of Dracula on him. Hey, Dracula, are you walking around just being a fan of Dracula? That's the joke that everyone makes regarding this. And, sure, it's funny. And I used to do it as well, too. Why not just make this a Dracula outfit? Like a bow tie, a tuxedo, something along those lines, a Dracula pendant. But they chose to do this. And I think this is interesting. And that's the reason I do collect these costumes, is for this wonderful artwork that does appear on the smocks. The masks are great, but it's always interesting to see, what did they go with on the smock for that particular character? And this Dracula, since they couldn't go for a Bela Lugosi Dracula, they went for what I feel is a Hammer Pictures Dracula, Christopher Lee Dracula. He really gives that feeling to me. And the reason why I say that is especially because the eyes on the Dracula are bloodshot, which is the way Christopher Lee's eyes always were in those Hammer pictures. And you've got this great picture here with his claws reaching out towards us, blood dripping from his mouth, his fangs, protruding, his mouth wide open. He's got that cool spider web collar behind him. And you even have the Hammer font letters in a way with the Dracula just dripping, done as dripping blood. And then we've got this great mask where they give us this pale-faced Dracula with the blood dripping from the mouth, almost identical to the same amount of blood dripping down in the smock photo, or picture, not photo. Got a bat on the moonlight there. And you've got Dracula with these cool sideburns, these arched eyebrows, the widow's peak with just a hint of silver in it, and sort of this green shading between his brows and his eyes. Really, really awesome mask. I really dig it. And it does, in a way, kind of capture a little bit of the Bela Lugosi thing. Like I said, they sort of dance around it. They usually go for the widow's peak is how you sort of get that Bela Lugosi feel. But this one, in a way, does too, because of sort of the plump face like Lugosi had, in a way. This is a child small, like I said, and one of the things I noticed about it when I got it was that the mask is very small. For some reason, I always remember the masks as being one size fits all. I didn't think they made a small mask for a small costume and large for large, vice versa. I thought it was one size mask. The only things that were different were the smocks. Now, growing up, I did not have a Ben Cooper Dracula costume. I did not trick or treat as Dracula. I saw Draculas out there. Later on in life, as I was older, I did go to Halloween parties. I went as a traditional Dracula one year with just the widow's peak and the white face and the blood dripping off the mouth. I also went out as a sort of angel from Buffy one year with latex, the evil angel with a leather jacket and boots and black jeans and stuff like that. And then last year I went out as Count Floyd from SCTV. Because the older I get, apparently the more I'm starting to look like Joe Flaherty from SCTV. At least that's what my good friends tell me. Did you trick-or-treat as Dracula? Did you have a Ben Cooper Dracula costume? A Collegeville? Any other style of vampire costume that you enjoyed? Go down to the comments. Tell us all about it. I'd love to hear your stories. Next up, we have Frankenstein. Or the Frankenstein's monster. Whichever you prefer. I prefer Frankenstein. So let's call him Frankenstein. Frankenstein was the next movie to appear in the Universal Monsters cycle, and he is my all-time favorite. I love Frankenstein. I love Frankenstein toys, books, comics, whatever. I cannot get enough of Frankenstein. And that is all due to Universal Monsters and the great Boris Karloff. There's just something so iconic about the Universal Monsters Frankenstein. It can't be touched. I mean, to this day, that is the picture that people see in their head of Frankenstein. Flat top, bolts in neck, green. Now, why is the monster green? There's a lot of speculation and theory as to when the monster became green or why we started portraying him as green. Most of it goes back to the original pictures. The monster in the book was portrayed as yellowish, sort of this jaundice color, this dead, yellowed skin. In the movie, they were trying to make him appear more of a grayish pallor, I imagine. They were in black and white, more along the quality of what a dead corpse's skin would look like. And I believe at the time they felt that green makeup on black and white appeared more gray. So they put Karloff in green makeup, is what people have said. And as a matter of fact, there are shots of Karloff in green makeup from Son of Frankenstein. At the time, I believe they were going to shoot Son of Frankenstein in color, and they did some test footage to see what it would look like. And then, of course, on a lot of the lobby cards and posters, there will be this sort of this greenish tinge given to the monster to make him stand out on the posters. And in the 60s, of course, the green monster really took off. All the toys and everything, the monster was portrayed as green in comics, on toys, in action figures. And to this day, that is most likely how you will see the Frankenstein monster with green skin. Or Frankenstein, which I prefer. Did I just call him the Frankenstein monster? But anyhow, here we have my favorite Frankenstein costume, the Ben Cooper Frankenstein from 1973. I love this run of the Ben Cooper monster costumes. And that was another thing with Ben Cooper, is they had a variety of different boxes and a variety of different Frankensteins. But the boxes could change depending on what department store they were sold in. There might be just a straightforward Woolworths box. It might say TV Heroes. It might say, movie monsters, whatever. This is the coolest. It's the monster costume and mask. And this is the box that I usually seek out when I seek out the monster costumes. It's got that great graphic art on the front of all the Universal monsters. You've got the Wolfman. You've got the Mummy with the bloody eye and a bonus bloody hand. And then you've got cool looking Frankenstein. He's kind of Glenn Strangeous. Try saying that. Glenn Strangeous. Glenn Strange S. Glenn Strange-esque. He's kind of Glenn Strange-esque. And then you've got the creature from the Black Lagoon with more of an elongated head than he's usually pictured with, and sort of some extra gills on the side there, like hanging down. Maybe to make him appear more 70s-ish. Maybe that's the way that will be sideburns for the creature from the Black Lagoon. Surprisingly, or maybe not so surprisingly, Dracula is missing from the box. Perhaps, again, because I don't know if they didn't have room or they just didn't want to do a generic Dracula on the box. That may also be why Dracula is the hardest one to find. And you've got that sort of hand coming up over the top here. Like, perhaps it's the creature from the Black Lagoon reaching all the way over the top. But this box is in good condition. It's blue. It's got, like, the monsters on it, as we say. And of course, you've got this that you would see. And these are from 1973, so you can't get more 70s than that with the 1973 coming on. You've got Frankenstein for a large child, 12 to 14 years of age. Fits a child 53 inches to 58 inches tall, 40% vinyl, 60% rayon, exclusive of ornamentation. And then you've just got this sort of flammable fabrics act thing. Additionally treated to retard flame. Do not wash. Washing removes flame retardancy. A little couple of bats there, and you've got that cool monster font. Now, I apologize for the filming here that you guys are seeing sort of the stuff stacked up around the Sanctum here. It's hard to sort of photograph or film these costumes just due to the size of them. And what I lack in filming skills and budget here, I make up for in personality and quality. So take that to heart, folks. But I will do some footage to show you guys some more close-ups on these as well. But this is just here so we can sort of see it in full and discuss it a little bit. So as I said, this is the 1973 Frankenstein costume. And here's one where they do a combo of it's a costume with a picture of the monster on it. So he's got this big coat, and he's sort of got this striped shirt he's wearing for some reason, and bolts for buttons, and then there is a large picture of the Frankenstein monster coming out of his chest. And that is the yellow monster. But this one has the great green mask. And I like this one because the monster has this frown on his face. He's got the two bolts coming out of the side of his neck. He's got the flat top, and he's got that great, really garish green face that just makes it so Monster Kid to me. The smock on this one, the pants are rayon, and the top is vinyl. And he's got bright red pants that we'll see down there in a minute. Now, Ben Cooper did a variety of versions of Frankenstein. Different boxes, different smocks, different masks. The original one, I believe, was like a yellowed one. And there's numerous Frankenstein ones. As a matter of fact, I've got this here, which is a cool action figure / toy of a Ben Cooper Frankenstein. It's got the yellow mask with sort of neon orange lips. And that is what the tunic would look like. Again, this one is crazy because it's like the monster is a brick wall with a picture of himself coming through a brick wall. And then he's got a little rope belt. And he's wearing this sort of checker flagged shirt for some reason. Again, this has got to be something very 60s, right? And these are really cool. They're done in the style of that it's a kid wearing a Halloween costume. I didn't take it out of the bag because I really like it. And there you can see it's done by BKC Monster Masks. And those are made by a guy that I found online. His name is Alexander Yeftik. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'll put a link to his site in the description to this if anybody's interested in purchasing these. He custom makes these, so they do take a while to get, but they're awesome. I mean, I had to have one being a Ben Cooper fan. I've got the Frankenstein one. He doesn't have a... He's got a neon Frankenstein one coming out that I put an order in for that one. But this is one of the first ones I got. Of course, I had to have the Ben Cooper Frankenstein. And behind it is the Ben Cooper Frankenstein. As a kid, I never went out as Frankenstein. As much as I loved him, he just never made it into the rotation of my costumes. Or maybe it was because the costume for Frankenstein was so common. I wanted to get something. I wanted something special. You know, Planet of the Apes or the Wolfman, things along those lines. Now, later in life, I went out as Frankenstein a couple of times, and that was all done with makeup. I did makeup effects. I went out in college, and then a few years back, when I took my daughter trick-or-treating, I went out as Frankenstein, and I really enjoyed that. I do still go trick-or-treating with my daughter, but for the most part now, I wear makeup effects or things along those lines. I still never grew out of Halloween. I still love going out. I still love dressing up. And when my daughter is too old to trick-or-treat, I will dress up and answer the door and hand out candy. Perhaps I will be buried in a Ben Cooper Frankenstein mask. On those lines. But Frankenstein is my favorite, as any fan of the Sanctum well knows. The majority of my collection, my monster collection, is Frankenstein. And next is the monster that is second to Frankenstein in my collection that I have the most of. And that would be, as I've stated before on prior episodes, next to my Frankenstein collection, the next monster that I collect the most is the Mummy. There's just something about the Mummy that I find so appealing. And it's not the Boris Karloff mummy per se, it's more of the Karras mummy, the one that we see before us here, the real bloody mummy. For some reason, they made the Mummy, like, they just tossed blood all over him in all the various incarnations that he was made into during the 60s and 70s. The Aurora model kits, the AHI figures, things along those lines, and this costume. Now, this is sort of a mix and match here. This is the actual original Ben Cooper costume from 1963, I believe. And it's got rayon pants, rayon sleeves, but this really nice soft cloth smock. And look at the detail on that mummy picture there. The graphic art on these is what I'm talking about that is amazing. I mean, sure, it could be that we just did sort of an outfit that looks like wrapped bandages, which you can see is sort of behind it there. They did a lot of things where it was like, well, we're kind of doing the uniform and we're going to throw the picture on top of it. So this one shows some wrapped bandages, and then there is a picture of the mummy there. And I mean, we would lose this fantastic illustration if they just went for a straight mummy outfit. And that is a really cool looking mummy there. It's a little bit different than the Karras mummy because it's got two eyes open. Usually the Karras mummy has one wide eye and one eye sort of missing with blood dripping out of it. You've got the cool cobra there, and you've got the great graphics. And of course, he's got blood all over his bandages, and he's got blood on both his hands like he just crushed somebody's skull. Now, the mask that is with this costume is not the original mask to this costume. It is a Ben Cooper mummy mask, but it's from the 1973 run of the Universal Monster mummy costumes. The original mummy was more of a patient. He looked like a guy with bandages wrapped around his head. It had sort of this corpse-like face, and then it had the bandages, which is a look that it's okay, but I never liked. I always liked this more Karras-looking mummy here. It looks like Lon Chaney Jr. from the Universal Picture Mummy films. You've got the blood coming out of the eye, but they do it kind of neon-y. It looks like his face is caked with the dirt of the tomb, and his hair is slicked back there. It almost does seem like it's Lon Chaney's death mask that we're looking at here in a way. And I don't have a box for this one either because I piecemealed it. I bought the smock online, and then I bought the mask online as well. And I just kept them together. I prefer this mask to that costume. And there's no rubber band on it. That's why it's sort of sitting inside the neck piece right now. Now, the mummy is another one I never did have growing up. I did want it. I remember really, really digging that mask and wanting to be the mummy a few years. I don't know why I changed my mind. Of course, you're just overwhelmed when you're in the aisles of Woolworths or wherever you are, Child World, something along those lines. It's like, what can I be? I just wanted to be every damn thing that was in that store. I couldn't make up my mind sometimes. Sometimes I knew, and I was solid. I definitely wanted to be that. Other times, I just panicked and couldn't decide. But I never had a chance to be the mummy. I was the mummy a few years ago when I went out trick-or-treating with my daughter. Again, I did that with makeup and sort of a mummy suit. And at the end of this video, I'll post some pictures of sort of the variety of costumes I've worn over the years. Next up, we have the Wolfman. Now, I've always been a huge fan of the Wolfman. He was the most sympathetic of the Universal monsters because he was part human, and the way Lon Chaney portrayed him with such a great sense of pathos. I've just always enjoyed the Wolfman character. You felt bad for him. He didn't want to be a monster. He didn't want to kill. He just wanted to die, which is the sad thing, right? He just wanted so that he was free from this curse. And I trick-or-treated as the Wolfman or dressed up as the Wolfman more than any other Universal monster over the course of my life thus far. And this costume is very special because this is the very first time I trick-or-treated as the Wolfman, and this was the Wolfman costume that I went out in, the Ben Cooper style from 1973. This isn't the costume. That costume was lost many, many moons ago, but I did reacquire this one via eBay. And it is, to this day, my favorite Ben Cooper version of the Wolfman. There are two Ben Cooper costumes that I had growing up that were my all-time favorites, and I hold close to my heart this day. One is the Planet of the Apes warrior ape / soldier ape costume, and the other is this Wolfman costume. I remember where I got it. We were at Heartland Drug, and I remember looking through the boxes, seeing these monster boxes on the shelf, and just going through them all. And as soon as I saw this, and I pulled out the tunic and looked at the tunic or the smock, and I looked at the mask, the combinations of the colors, the way the Wolfman looked, I knew right then and there I didn't have to make a decision. I wanted to be this. And I didn't change my mind the whole time, and I was so happy to be this. I wore it and played in it, all before Halloween, showed it to anybody that would come over. And when I went out in this in Halloween, I thought I was, as they say, the cat's meow. I just loved this costume so much. And so this one really means a lot to me to have in my collection, to have finally acquired this. It's the same, from the same era, the same box, so on and so forth. And the other thing I enjoy about this is this one has that lovely patina I've got on it. This one was sold at Woolworths for $3.27. The cellophane's coming off the box a little bit here, but it's a Wolfman large. At my age, I probably would have worn a medium. But it is fantastic. Here's the Wolfman sort of an earlier version of the Wolfman, like from the 1960s. He had this more of a paint job, like a fleshy face, the big ears, lots of hair. This was an independent mask. It's got the price tag in there, 69 cents. But this is along the lines of what the original Wolfman looked like in the original run of the Ben Cooper Wolfman. He's still got the cool underbite. He has sort of this pig-like nose. It kind of reminds me of the Tellarite ambassador Gav from the Star Trek episode Journey to Babel. You could really make a cool mask like that for him. I love again that this has the price tag on it. And part of these things that I acquire, via eBay or yard sales or Craigslist or whatever, but particularly these costumes, I always wonder where they've been, what journey they've taken before they wound up with me. Are some of them just old store stock? Some guy ran an old store or an old mom and pop shop, and his kids are cleaning out his basement and they find these and they sell them on eBay. Are some that just kids held on to them all this time with the box and everything, even with the price tag on it. And somehow along the way, it made itself to me. When you do think about it, it's amazing that any of these survived, because I do not have any of my original costumes. They obviously got thrown out over the years via various moves and stuff. There were masks that would hang around for a while. They would come down at Halloween and we'd use them as decorations, but they'd eventually get crushed or broken or bent. And the smocks themselves, I mean, usually by the end of trick-or-treating at night, they weren't put together very well. They were usually pretty well torn, especially if you were having a fun night trick-or-treating. And it's just beautiful. I mean, looking at it, I'm getting all those feelings all over again. There's something about the colors on this particular version of the Wolfman that they did. The green, the yellow, the way the Wolfman's pictured on the front of the smock, and the mask design. I think what I like more about the mask design is it's a wider faced Wolfman. It looks more like the Lon Chaney Jr. version, or the version that I really loved growing up in the 70s, the Jack Russell Werewolf by Night version from Marvel Comics. Because that's who I kind of thought I was a combination of when I was out there. And it's just so amazing. I love that they put these green highlights throughout the mask. It gives it a very Halloween quality, I think, with the green on it. I don't know why. Almost as if sort of it's kind of Frankenstein-esque to have the green as well as the red. And you've got that great artwork again on the smock. And I haven't mentioned it yet, but I recently learned that the gentleman that made most of the paintings on these Ben Cooper smocks was a man by the name of Frank Romano. He's still alive. He's in his 90s. He has an Etsy shop where he sells original paintings as well as reproductions of these paintings he did on the Ben Cooper smocks. Found out about that in a great book by a friend of mine, Jason Young, Old School Halloween. And I'm going to put a link to that in the description, as well as we'll kick in a brief commercial on the channel as well. It's a fantastic book. Jason reached out to me after seeing last year's episode and asked if I could photograph some of my collection, which I did. And a lot of the Dr. Durant Sanctum collection appears in his fantastic book, so you can get a closer look at some of the things there. This Wolfman costume we're looking at right now appears in there. I highly recommend the book, not only because my costumes are in it, but it has a great deal of information about Ben Cooper costumes. It showcases a lot of costumes that I don't have, and it's fun. Get a bit of a closer look of that smock and that great Frank Romano artwork. Now again, here we have, it's a combination of a Wolfman. You can see he's got a hairy chest and stomach. He's got that rope belt. For some reason in the 70s, all the Wolfman toys, the Wolfman had a rope belt, like the AHI figure. I believe the Remco Wolfman had a rope belt. They thought that for some reason he needed a belt, but he's not sophisticated enough to work like a leather belt. But I bet he can tie a knot or two, so he'll just wrap this rope belt around him. Get the door. All right. Oh, look who it is. Oh, aren't you a fright? What are you supposed to be, dear? The Wolfman? Oh, that's terrifying. It's a scary thing. Oh, I love your little rope belt there. Oh. Who is it? It's a trick-or-treater. He's the Wolfman. Well, give him some Necco wafers and send him on his way. All right, here you go, dear. You know, in my day, I used to go to the picture shows. For a dime, we could go on a Saturday afternoon, stay there all day long, see a newsreel, a cartoon, and as many pictures as we wanted. And I remember that Wolfman picture with Lon Chaney Jr. He was an amazing actor. Now, Universal's The Wolfman with Lon Chaney Jr. and Werewolf by Night from Marvel Comics started my love of the Wolfman and the werewolf. But wearing this costume cemented it. So much so that, as I said earlier, I have gone out as the Wolfman more so than any other monster from the Universal Pictures horror cycle. I went out in high school with the Face makeup kit. It was a really cool makeup kit they used to put out. They called them the Face. And they were sort of these special effects makeup appliances. You could be an ape or a wolf or a ghoul. I believe they had a Frankenstein one as well. And one year I did use the ghoul one. I used that for a Phantom of the Opera costume. And one year I went out as the wolf creature, the werewolf. I did my own Wolfman makeup. And it came out pretty good. And then there also was one other time that I was the Wolfman. That was back in 5th grade. And my father had, for some reason, taken me to this place called J&S Smoke Shop in Waltham, Massachusetts. He was always going to smoke shops, and he didn't smoke, but I think he went in there to play the lottery, to scratch tickets and buy lottery tickets. And I would always peruse around looking at comic books and things of that nature. But back in the 70s and early 80s, a lot of these smoke shops were sort of smoke/joke novelty stores. And they would sell jokes and novelties and things along those lines, fake vomit, fake dog dew. And they would have a huge mask collection, rubber mask collection. It was usually kept up around the perimeter of the ceiling of the store. They would be up high on mannequin heads. And they would have all these great overhead monster masks. Many of them from the back pages of Famous Monsters or Creepy and Eerie magazine. So I knew these by sight when I saw them. And I'm in there with him, and I see this amazing werewolf mask that it just blew me away. I've researched it and found out later that it is from Be Something Studios, and it was the she-wolf mask. And I see that thing, and I say to my dad, Dad, please, can I get that? That's what I want to be for Halloween this year. And he's kind of annoyed, and he's like, no, we're not getting it now. It's nowhere near Halloween. And I said, well, please, the whole time in the car, we're driving home, and I'm begging him for that mask. So after constant pestering, my dad finally caves and says something along the lines of, you're good, or you get your grades up, we'll go back in October, and I'll get you that mask, I promise. So October rolls around, and I remind my dad of his promise to get me the mask. And so one early, crisp October evening, we drive into Waltham back to J&S Smoke Shop. I walk in and the mask is still there. And I say, I'll take that mask. The guy brings it over to the counter and he's starting to ring us up. And he says to my dad, he goes, do you guys need any accessories? Like a monk's robe or werewolf hands or werewolf feet to go with it? My dad's like, no, we're all set. Just the mask. He goes, how about some fake blood? You need some fake blood? My dad's like, no, just the mask, please. So the guy rings it up. And he tells my dad, that'll be $40. My dad completely loses his mind. He goes, $40? $40 for a goddamned Halloween mask? What the hell are you trying to pull here? Now, of course, I know that these are the masks from the back of Famous Monsters magazine, and I know what they go for. And this is pretty much the going rate for what they are. But my dad has no concept of the fact that a Halloween mask would be $40, which back then, even today, it's a significant amount of money, but back then it was a real significant amount of money for a Halloween mask. And my dad was this big Irish guy, and he's standing there in his raincoat and his little Sully hat, and he's turning beet red, and he is screaming in the store, and everybody is looking around because he thinks that this guy is trying to scam us somehow. And he's like, "You got to be out of your effing mind, thinking that you're going to sell a kid a mask for $40. What the hell is wrong with you guys? I'm not buying this goddamn mask. I'm not paying $40 for a stupid mask." And he's screaming, and I'm just standing there. I'm aghast because I'm embarrassed that my dad is yelling at people, and I'm also just at a loss that I'm not going to now get this mask that I want. This goes on for a bit, and finally my dad, he just throws the money down, he takes the mask, and he storms outside, slamming the door closed, leaving me in the store with all these guys. And I'm sort of like, "I'm sorry." And I walk out to the sidewalk, and my dad is still out on the sidewalk screaming through the window at these guys. The gall you have to do this to a kid, to charge him $40 for a mask. And he like acts like he's writing down their name. He's like, "I'm calling the Better Business Bureau on this place." But true to his word, I think he knew that he had to keep his promise and get me the mask. So that was the trauma I went through to finally obtain a full head mask. And that was my first full head horror mask. But credit to my father where credit is due. As traumatic as that experience was for me, he kept his word. He kept his promise. He knew he had promised me the mask, and as much as it killed him to shell out $40 for what he thought was a stupid Halloween mask, it was something I cherished for many, many, many years. And I kept that mask for as long as I could, and eventually the rubber corroded and it dissolved. And I kind of wish I could find it again, but those older masks just weren't built to last as well. The rubber in them was of a very poor quality. But I have the memory of that to sustain me, and it's always a good story that I tell all the time. And in a way, I saw my dad's werewolf side come out. He went from just grumpy old dad to insane bestial dad. He was so furious about this mask situation. But at the end of the whole situation, my dad was a man who was pure of heart. And last but not least, we have the last classic monster from the Universal Monster Cycle. The Creature from the Black Lagoon from 1954's Creature from the Black Lagoon. Now, this is the 1973 version, and it came in a really nice box. However, the box that this came in is for Frankenstein. So I don't have it in a creature box. Now, creature collectors are a rabid bunch. They are fanatical about the Creature from the Black Lagoon, and they buy up everything creature when it comes out. So whenever a Universal Monsters cycle of toys or collectibles comes out, the creature ones are the ones that go the fastest and that draw the highest amount of money on the secondary market. The Ben Cooper creature is a difficult one to find, and it usually goes for high prices. It's hard to get ones for a good price. I got this one for a good price, and it is one that I always wanted as a kid. I would see it in the stores, and I never did go as the Creature from the Black Lagoon, sadly. But now I have this one, so let's take a look. So here we have the creature in all his glory. Now you can tell the 73 line from the latter line in that it's a combination of rayon and vinyl. The sleeves and the pants are kind of a nice rayon material, and then the chest piece is vinyl. You've got that great picture there by Frank Romano, as we stated earlier. Really cool picture of the creature coming out of the water. There you have, you sort of have his hands there reaching out to us. He's swimming or he's climbing up onto shore. And then you've got the mask there. And there were many different paints of the creature. This is the one with the gold gills and sort of the little gold nods on his head. And to be perfectly honest, I bought this off a creature collector online, and I believe that it is probably a mix and match. It's the 73 tunic for sure. I think the mask is a later piece, and it was just one of the masks that was sold separately off the rack. The paint job is very muted on it. It doesn't have the big red lips, which I kind of miss. It has the yellowish lips or greenish lips. And it's got the gold gills, which is why, of course, I had to get another one of these cool Ben Cooper figures from Alexander Yettick. Again, I apologize if I mispronounced his last name. But he's from BKC. And it's got the Frank Romano tunic, red pants, red sleeves, and it's got the gold mask. And then we see the real thing. And then, hey, oh, what? Oh my God. Ooh. This is something. This is something else. So it was a tough piece to come by, and you don't see the creature pop up a lot in the secondary market for the Ben Cooper costumes. And when he does, he's usually pretty high priced. It was a great design. I mean, you can see why creature fans are rabid about the creature. They buy everything Creature from the Black Lagoon. And we're going to do a creature episode coming up in the next couple of months. So that's one of the monsters I haven't focused on yet. But I have quite a bit of Creature from the Black Lagoon stuff myself. And it was always fun to play Creature from the Black Lagoon when you were in the pool or in the ocean swimming around. I would always pretend that I was the creature from the Black Lagoon. I did, however, never get a chance to trick or treat as the creature. And to this day, I have not dressed up as the creature. It's a difficult costume to put together, I mean, right? Even this one, this is one of the smocks that they don't make it look like the creature. I don't know why they didn't give him gills along the side or something like that. Or I don't know why the pants are red. You know, you would think the pants would be green, kind of like the Wolfman ones were. It's kind of interesting the color combinations they chose for some of these smocks. They make the creature red and yellow, which is a cool look. I really like it. I think it matches with the green mask. Get a closer look at the tunic there. And then let's take a look at the mask a little bit. So there you have the creature mask. Like I said, it's got these sort of, it's kind of very airbrushed. And I think it's a ladder piece because the price tag on it says 79. Oh, it says 1973, 79 cents. So, but I think this was sold separately. They used to just sell the masks alone on the rack. And then he had a part of a costume and he mixed them together. I'll live with it. They're both from 1973. And I don't mind the gold one. I'd rather have the traditional one, but this is kind of interesting. It's a certain variant. And there are many different variants out there of the creature. And it's great to have him. He was actually the last one I acquired as part of my set. But I love having the full I have to go back and say I don't have the 1973 Dracula. It's 78. So that is still one I have to hunt down and get. But I do love having the 1973 full monster set. And one day I will move on to the 60s one, which is a bit more pricey. But this is my favorite. I was a 70s monster kid, and there's just something about the way they did the monsters in the 70s that just appeals to me. Now, they did do a Phantom of the Opera costume. It wasn't in this particular run. It was sort of a random Phantom of the Opera. I believe it was Ben Cooper did one. I think Collegeville did one as well earlier on. And I do not believe or have never seen a Quasimodo or Hunchback of Notre Dame. Those two are sort of honorary members of the Universal canon. They came first in the silent era, but they've always been part of the Universal monster cycle to me. I did go out as a Hunchback of Notre Dame once. As I stated earlier, I got a sort of half rubber mask at Jack's Joke Shop in Boston when I was younger. I wore one of my dad's old coats and put a plastic army helmet up under my back to give me the hump, and then put a rope belt around it, and I had some monster hands, and I loved that. And when I went out as the Phantom of the Opera twice. In junior high school, I did a makeup job with the Phantom of the Opera where I used the face makeup kit with the ghoul, and I just used the top portion. I didn't use the chin. And then I traced my hand around my eye and put scarring tissue on it so that I looked like the Herbert Lom Phantom of the Opera from the Hammer version. And a few years ago, I went out trick-or-treating with my daughter, and I made myself up as the Phantom of the Opera, sort of the traditional one, but I was trying to emulate the Remco version of the Phantom of the Opera. So do yourself a favor and click on that Bleak Sunday hashtag found in the description to this video. It'll take you to all the participating members, and you'll find some really cool stuff there. Get you in the Halloween spirit. I'll also leave some links in the description to Frank Romano's site on Etsy, as well as Alexander's site and how you can order those cool custom monster Ben Cooper figures. And of course, I'm going to leave information about Jason Young's cool book, An Old School Halloween. It's a great book, and I was really happy. I was happy to participate in Jason's book, to send in photos of my costumes, because I love sharing this stuff with other people. Owning it is fun, collecting it and hunting it down is fun, but being able to show it to someone else who gets the same excitement from it or wave of memories from it that I do is where I really find the joy. Where somebody's like, I had that, or, you know, they tell their stories along the lines too. You're like, yeah, my dad bought me an overhead mask and flipped out on a store clerk. So, I mean, and I love learning from the community, from other monster kids. I love hearing from other monster kids and collectors in general, and just what people think of these items and their memories of them and the joy that they had on Halloween's past. So click that like and subscribe button so you can find out what costumes I'm going to showcase next. And leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your guys' memories on these costumes. What were your favorite Ben Cooper Collegeville costumes? Or some of the others, Halcos. Anybody collect Halcos? They're really hard to get. I'd love to hear your memories. I'd love to see pictures. We have a Facebook page, Dr. Durant Sanctum. Look us up on Facebook. Join us. And I'd love to see you guys post pictures of the Halloween costumes you wore as kids. Or even some of the stuff you put together as adults. Makeup. Did anybody have the face makeup kit? So until next time, may you all lead death on a merry chase. Dip your feet in the Black Lagoon. Sip some tana leaf tea. Build a bat house. Make sure your brain is in the right place. And howl at the moon. May you all have 100 Halloweens more, and enjoy being who you chose to be. Walk in beauty, my friends.